Should I start?
Sure.
Okay. Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Shirin Khosropur. I'm a professor of psychology at ACC. I'm also director of the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies, and it's from the center that we bring you this fabulous series of talks by Dr. Dwayna Welch. Let me tell you a little bit about our center before we move on to introducing Dr. Welch. The Center for Peace and Conflict Studies is, we will link, instead of saying too much about it, we will link the center's website to the chat room, but we bring you a bunch of different events. We also coordinate the degree program in Peace and Conflict Studies. So if you want to know more about those, please let me or Leila know. This semester, it's almost over, but during this academic year, we have this talk series by Dr. Dwayna Welch about peace in relationships. This is the first of 4. We also have a Cinema of Conflict and Transformation film series. There is another film is coming up. Please look under events on our webpage to find out more information about that. And we have a series of a training series, Conflict Transformation Academy. And since you've registered for this event, you will get notification of upcoming events, and you can opt out of those at any time if you want. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Welch. Dr. Dwayna Welch is author of the Love Factually books, known for using social science to solve real life relationship issues. So instead of talking about opinions, she talks about using the up-to-date science information we have from psychology, communication, and helping us have healthier relationships. She taught psychology across 20 years at a handful of universities and colleges, including at Austin Community College. We couldn't remember exactly how many years, somewhere between 5 to 10 years, but certainly not long enough. She has been awarded Professor of the Year at Cal State 2 years in a row in 2000 and 2001, and was also honored with a NISOD and Outstanding Service Award in 2012 in recognition of her work here at ACC. She's contributed to NPR, PBS, Psychology Today, and numerous other outlets, podcasts, and videos. Her books are now out globally in 5 languages. All rely on science rather than opinion to help men and women of any age, sexual or gender orientation, to help them to find and keep the right partner. Her client practice is global via Zoom and other technologies. And as she begins giving us her talk today, we ask that you keep your audio and video muted for the best experience overall stability of this platform. Welcome, Dwayna, and I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khosropur. And I'm really happy and flattered and excited that you invited me to do this series. I can't remember if participants already know that you can ask questions throughout by using the group chat, and you can send them to me individually, or you can send them to the whole group, and I'll try to answer them as they come up. And then Ms. Leila Taragi is going to let me know if I space and I miss somebody. So without further introduction, love should not hurt. If it hurts, you're not doing it right. And I'm hoping that the information that I present today changes your life. It certainly changed mine. It is all based on excellent science that began many decades ago with John Bowlby, Harry Harlow, and Mary Ainsworth, and continues today with people like Cindy Shaver and Philip Shaver and Cindy Hazan. So let me see how I forward I've never actually presented with PowerPoint over Zoom. This is a new thing. So why do we love? So I have a son who's 19 years old, and when he was about 6 and in the 1st grade, he came home very excited one day. He knew I was a psychologist. He knew that I taught about love. And he came home and he said, Mom, guess what? Guess what? Love is a need. And I said, yes, darling, I know that. And he said, no, it's not something people just want. It's something that they need, like water. And I gave him a big hug and said, yes, that's true. Scientifically, it's true. We know, for example, that infants that are given enough nutrition but are not held experience something called failure to thrive quite commonly. Research in Romanian orphanages many years ago showed that many of these infants died. And for a while, nobody could figure out why. Here in America, in our own hospitals, babies that were in the ICU were frequently not held. Their parents were kept out of the intensive care unit. And these children also failed to thrive, even though all their physical needs were met. And we know that our relationships, if they're good, they really give us a springboard for everything worthwhile in life. Everything. And better career, more money, much greater happiness, much more satisfaction with life, more and more regular sex. The people who are the most happy with their sex lives are people who make a full commitment instead of playing the field. The people who have the most sex are people who make a full commitment instead of playing the field. People in great relationships tend to be extremely supportive of each other's goals, and they really help each other to succeed. So when relationships are good, a lot of times people will emphasize the role of child rearing and how things turn out better for children, and that is true. But what's equally true is that relationships that are committed are really good for adults. They're not just things that we have so that we can raise children. So there's also, of course, a really high cost of bad relationships. I was reading data collected a few years ago showed that the average cost to society, not to the individuals involved, but to society, for the average divorce was about $45,000 to $50,000 for every divorce. Bad relationships not only frequently have poor health outcomes for people, including mental and physical health outcomes, but they also have a devastating impact on most women's economics. It tends to impoverish them. And with men, it tends to create very high outcomes regarding suicide and really poor health. So what we want to do, obviously, is to have relationships that feel safe. And that's really what we're talking about today. Everyone has an attachment style. It begins when you're a baby and it ends when you die. And an attachment style is your way of being in intimate partnerships. So when you're a baby, you're attached to your caregivers. And as a child, you attach to the adults that you're closest to, and maybe to some friends. And then when you enter your teen years, frequently people fall in love. It's interesting. I remember being in love when I was in the 8th grade and having people belittle that fact. And I remember thinking, no, we're too young to do anything about it, but this is really love. And it really was. And research backs that up. Love is something that is a way that we express our attachment. And in the big picture, what attachment research shows is that a lot of us make a mistake when we are choosing a partner and when we're thinking about ourselves, is in terms of thinking that love is something that everyone has equal access to, an equivalent ability to experience and allow to kind of permeate into the center of your being, and an equivalent odds of giving to another person. And the truth is, people really vary widely in their ability and their willingness to love and to be loved. Applying this information is going to be absolutely key to having peace in your life. This is talk, obviously, for the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies, and I'm in favor of making more love, not more war. So we're going to talk about how you can use information about attachment style to get there. All right. One of the things that will help this be more informative for you is to know what your style is. We're not going to take the time right now for you to do the online test, but I wanted to provide you with the link, and perhaps that could be sent out to the group afterwards. There's a book called Attached. I have a copy right here. If you haven't ever learned anything about attachment theory and you want to do a deeper dive into what I'm talking about today, this is a really good book to do that. And it's by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. And it really makes attachment science accessible to everyone. This quiz is a quiz that is from research, which they have put on their website. It also allows you to assess a partner's behavior to determine a partner's attachment style. If you don't want to be direct and pointed and say, hey, take this quiz and give me your result. Okay, so the first people to decide that attachment in infancy probably carried through to adulthood were Cindy Hazan and Phil Shaver. Actually, I always forget which one first name goes with which last name, so I apologize if I got that wrong. But what I want to do is I'm going to read you and show you attachment styles A, B, C, and D. And what I would like you to do as I show and read this to you is to determine which one of these four seems to be most applicable to you in your life most of the time. So we'll start off with A. Attachment style A. I find it relatively easy to get close to others. I'm comfortable depending on them and having them depend on me. I don't often worry about being abandoned or about someone getting too close to me. Okay, that's A. I'll give you a moment to look at that. Right, and here is B. I find that others are reluctant to get as close as I would like. I worry that my partner doesn't really love me or won't want to stay with me. I want to merge completely with another person, and this desire sometimes scares people away. That's B. Somebody says, war is a form of love, is it not? In some ways, it reflects sibling relationships. A lot of siblings often fight, and afterwards, they will often make up. I'm going to have to say that that's not what my understanding of the scientific literature is. Sibling rivalry seems to have a place in evolutionary psychology, but it's a sign of competition for resources and power. It is not necessarily a sign of love. So that's B, but that's a great question. I've never had that one before. Thanks, Cameron. C. I am uncomfortable getting close to others. I want emotionally close relationships, but I find it difficult to trust others completely or to depend on them. I worry that I will be hurt if I allow myself to become too close to others. That's C. And I'm going to give everybody a moment to look at that while I address a little bit more of what Cameron asked about war being a form of love. Conflict is necessary in intimate relationships, but it's not war. And it's not necessarily competition for resources. Conflict happens because no two people are alike, and the way that conflict happens either creates or undermines trust and intimacy in a relationship. Okay, so you've all had a chance to look at C, and now D. This is the last one. I am comfortable without close relationships or close emotional relationships. It is very important to me to feel independent and self-sufficient, and I prefer not to depend on others or have others depend on me. Okay, so I'm just going to go back through this one more time. Shaver and Hazan put this in a newspaper ad or newspaper piece to see whether people identified with these different styles. It was an early way that scientists looked at attachment in adulthood, because we know that babies attach in these ways, but in an infantile form. There are babies who are very clearly close to their caregivers and very comfortable depending on them. And they are able to self-soothe and self-regulate very easily if their attachment figure, usually the mother, leaves the room, and they're able to, on reunion, when mom comes back in the room, they hug mom and they show a lot of joy, and then they go right back to exploring. They use their mother for something called a secure base. We know that babies also show various levels of attachment, that they're still attachment, but they show fear Some of these forms of attachment are clinging, like what you would see in style B with an infant. Infants who kind of act like cling wrap when mom comes back, they're too afraid to go and explore. You see this, any of you who've taken intro psych, if you saw the Harlow monkey studies, uh, he would put a fake mother, a cloth mother, into a room and release an infant monkey into a playroom that had lots of unusual toys in it. And when an infant monkey was released into a room with a lot of unusual objects, if the cloth mother was present, the monkey would run over to her and cling to her and get a lot of contact comfort from her, and then would begin exploring in a seemingly perfectly well-adjusted, happy way, which is what happens with style A in babies. And all the other circumstances that Harlow put the monkeys through, they showed that they were they showed various levels of inability to explore their world. So part of what I'm getting at here is that the ability to be securely attached, and we're going to describe these really fully, the ability to be securely attached is really helpful in the development of intelligence and of relationships, and it really spills over into every aspect of life. It's a gift that I wish I could give, just wave a wand and give to everyone. But in today's talk, you'll learn how to give it to yourself. That's one of the goals of today. So here's the good news. Security is this wonderful, wonderful thing. And I would say that if you're secure, you won the lottery. That's style A. But the lottery wins are rare, and being secure is actually really common. Studies put it anywhere from 60 to 70%. Style B, and we are again going to go over these styles. Style B is anxious, that's about 15%. I used to be anxious, I'm now secure. So again, you can change your style if you want to. We will be going over that. Style C and D are both avoidant, but they're just different flavors of avoidant. There's avoidant fearful, which we're going to go over in detail today. And then there's avoidant dismissive, which we're really not going to cover in detail today. And both types of avoidant total at approximately 20%. I want to emphasize the reason we're not going to go over avoidant dismissive very much is because people who are dismissive really do not think relationships are worth it. And they're probably not watching today. And if they were watching, they would probably be dismissive of watching. They're not the people who hire me. They're not the people who read my books. They're not the people who attend my lectures or listen to my podcasts or read what I write or sign up for the app that I write and present content for. They're not engaged with that. So I'm going to look at a couple questions now here in the sidebar. Which attachment style would correlate with disorganized? The fifth possibility? Yes, I would say so. The fifth possibility is a combination of anxious and avoidant. And we're not really going to go over that today. What I would like you to do if you're anxious and avoidant is understand that both of these apply to you, and the strategies for changing that, if you decide to, will still apply to you even if you have a combined style. But I will say almost every source out there seems to say that if you are a combination of anxious and avoidant, that therapy is really, really very helpful. Somebody else says, do these styles manifest or look different in different cultural contexts? That's from Ramesh. Ramesh, my understanding is that they look the same across cultures, but that's not, I'm not completely confident saying that. That's not something I've done a lot of reading on. Sadaf says, the attachment styles can be learned and unlearned. Yes, yes, they can be. We will be going over that today in some detail because having security is such a wonderful thing that I want everybody to be able to do it. And Amy says, they say 20% of the population are sociopaths. I wonder if it's an overlap with avoidant attachment style. My hypothesis is that there are several psych disorders that are extreme versions of insecure attachment. For example, I think, and there are some others out there wiser than I in this area, who think that Anxiety, having an anxious attachment style in its extreme form is what you get with borderline personality disorder. And I personally have not read anywhere, but I do believe that you are right, that um, an extreme version of avoidant would involve sociopathology and various other personality disorders. Sarah asks, Cameron had another question above, do infants learn their attachment styles from their parents and caregivers? Yes, they do. And one thing, I'm really glad you asked that question and reminded me of Cameron's question, Sarah, because um, infants are in a developmental stage that Eric Erickson called basic mistrust versus basic trust. And the idea is that if life is predictable, if I'm a baby and when I'm wet, somebody changes me, when I'm hungry, somebody feeds me, and when I need contact, somebody holds me, that what they basically learn is the world is a safe place. It's a trustworthy place. And when we leave infants to cry it out, or we refuse to hold them, or we meet their needs sometimes, but not other times, that they get the idea that the universe is a fairly scary place. It's one reason why this idea that babies should be left to cry it out, or that we shouldn't hold them, or we should, we should give them a stiff upper lip. That's bunk. It's a popular cultural misperception, and it really has no place in science and no place in parenting. But a lot of people still do it. I want to go a little further with that idea, though. So most of us maintain the same attachment style from infancy through about the age of 20. But there are other studies that show that about 1 in 4 people changed their attachment style over a 4-year period of time. That doesn't mean that 1 in 4 people change their attachment style every 4 years. It means that when scientists look at adult attachment over a 4-year period of time with all the same people in that study, they find that about 25% of those folks have changed styles. And we're going to talk a little bit later about how that happens. Okay, Diana says, is it possible that although the styles look the same across cultures, they are perceived and received differently? That may be. I can't really answer that. It's a good question that I am not well informed enough to answer. Okay, from Vicki Lynn. These attachment styles are products of neglect or trauma for the most part, correct? They're not embedded personality traits in the sense of someone falls under C or D, correct? Yes, personality is considered to be usually a separate dimension, although I think that there is a connection with personality disorders. And I'm just waiting to see if somebody wants to do all the hard work of the science to find that out, because it won't be me. I don't run a lab anymore, and I didn't, when I did run one, it was on memory and aging. It wasn't on this. So attachment styles are not largely a product of neglect or trauma. They are largely a product of a combination of nature and nurture, just like everything about you. There's a biological predisposition. We now know that, for example, Holocaust survivors were changed by that traumatic experience at the genetic level, and they passed those genetic changes on to their children. And some of these map onto feeling secure or anxious or avoidant. We also know that parenting plays a large role, that people who parent very lovingly and consistently and meet their infants' needs when the infants have them tend to wind up with a secure child who feels safe exploring the world, and people who parent in a more haphazard manner where sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not, or if they're actually abusive, they tend to wind up with children who are anxiously attached or avoidant, or either type of avoidant. And we also know that there's a gender role here. Some books downplay that. I will say that it's more typical that if somebody's parented inconsistently, they have an anxious style, and it's more typical that, if they're parented inconsistently and they're female, they have an anxious style, and if they're parented inconsistently and they're male, they tend to wind up with an avoidant style. Let's see, I'm trying to see other questions. Ramesh says, I sometimes feel like communal traumas can manifest in different attachment styles. That's right. There's a lot larger portion of anxiously attached people in diaspora immigrant populations. That may be correct. That's an excellent point. the point that I just made about the genetic changes that were passed down to the children of Holocaust survivors would indicate that that may very well be the case. And Sadaf says, I'm relating it with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where individuals strive for security once their primary needs are fulfilled. Yeah, Maslow was saying that we really can't reach for higher levels of fulfillment unless we have basic security. And, you know, obviously his theory is still around because there's a lot to it. Amy says this book was popular in New York City 12-step circles back in 2010. Yeah, this the book Attached is going to be a perennial bestseller for excellent reasons. I've also written an attachment book, and if you're going to only read one book about attachment, I recommend, not mine, I recommend Attached. But if you want the quick hit that's still accurate and gives a little bit different kinds of examples, I have one that I've got at a very low price point as well. Okay, from Seda, same for children who are products of slavery. I imagine so, yeah. Okay, let's describe each of these styles. A, B, and C. We're not going to go through D because those folks really don't see the point of intimacy, and they tend to cycle through relationships really rapidly and in a very non-committed way. So we're going to talk about the people who want attachment, and that's the secure, the anxious, and the avoidant fearful, styles A, B, and C. So we're going to start with A. And I say there are the four C's of secure people are: they are calm, close, consistent, and clear. I want to ask you a question as we go into this, which is, when you think about yourself in relationships, and I don't want you to necessarily answer me on the chat, this is something that I want you to think about for yourself. When you think about yourself in relationships, and if you're not in a relationship, when you envision what it might be like to be in a relationship or what it was like in a past relationship, do you think, or did you think, that part of your job description in that relationship was or is to be supportive, loving, and create happiness for your partner's life? Right now, most people think that what I just said is codependent. Most people think that if you think it's your job to make your partner happy, that you are codependent. I want to debunk this thoroughly. The people who are the most peaceful, the happiest in their relationships, who have the longest lasting marriages, who have the children who do the best, are people who live as if they think it is their job to make their partner happy. And when they're asked in surveys and studies whether they think that, they say yes. The only people who say no to this are other styles. And somebody says, it's like a toxic myth born out of our bootstrapping narrative. That is very well said, Amy. It is. Sue Johnson, who's a very famous attachment therapist, she helps adults kind of retrain their attachment. She has a number of books out about that. She says dependency is a dirty word in Western society. Another author that I really like, Susan Page, says that Mother Teresa noted that America was the loneliest and least loving place she had ever been. So I think it's really, really necessary to understand that it's part of the myth of individualism that is, and Amy has pointed that out too in her comment, that it's rugged individualism. Americans in studies that are cross-cultural, this is one of the times I can speak to cross-cultural research. In cross-cultural research, individualism is valued and prized more highly in the United States than any other country in the world. And so there's this idea that it's shameful to depend on someone else. People, every one of you depended on 80 other people before you got here today. You depended on the truck driver who brought you the toilet paper that people are making a run on the store for right now. You depended on people to stock those shelves. You depended on people to put gas in the gas tank where you go and gas up your car, if you have one. You depended on the bus driver. You depended on doctors and nurses and nurse practitioners and healthcare providers. You depended on your friends, maybe, to care what was happening in your day-to-day. If you have a partner, you depended on your partner to care about what happened to you. It's just BS that we don't depend on other people. All of us do. The question is, do you take that on as part of your job description? And secure people say, not just yes. You're probably hearing my dog, he's shaking his head. Coda, would you like to meet the audience today? Audience, that's Coda. Coda, he's one of my attachment figures, by the way. Relationships enhance your life. They are not primarily creators of complications. If you're experiencing your relationship as an endless creator of complications, then you're probably in the wrong relationship, or your attachment styles are a poor match, or your attachment style itself could use some work. Secure people have the best outcomes, and they view a relationship as a blessing, a real opportunity to enhance life, not something that's going to make it worse. I understand a lot of people are very afraid of relationships because many of us, and I definitely include myself here, have had some really terrible relationships and relationship outcomes. They've changed us for the worse. We feel sad about that. We may feel trauma. We may have endured years of trauma, but I'm telling you, that's not love. That was the opposite of love. That wasn't love that you were experiencing there. Secure people do not engage in drama. In fact, many people meeting a secure person think, oh, well, he's kind of boring. No, he's not boring. He's safe. And we're going to talk about why it is some of you think those folks are boring and what to do about that, because I hope we're going to get around to talking about dating today and mate selection. The assumption that a secure person makes when you have inevitable conflicts and disagreements is, or if you hurt their feelings, is one of goodwill. So, for example, let's say that you are dating somebody and they're always late to things. Somebody who's not secure will take that personally. They will think that it's a personal affront, and they will make the assumption that there is something either wrong with them or wrong with you. And somebody who's secure will just think, oh, that's just how they are, or it's just a little quirk that they have. They have an assumption of goodwill, in other words. Secure people routinely de-escalate conflict. So let's say a secure person is partnered with somebody who is not secure, and that person just jumps on them and says something like, I don't know, you're a terrible cook. I wish I'd picked somebody who cooked better than you. I'm making all this stuff up. Well, not all of it. I'm not making up any of the science, just the example. So a secure person will kind of look surprised and say, oh, it sounds like you're really disappointed with dinner tonight. Maybe we could talk about what you would like to do about that. They don't take the bait. They don't rise to opportunities to get into dramatic conflict. Secure people are also very forgiving. That doesn't mean that they necessarily tolerate just anything, but it does mean that they view relationships as something where two people come together to help each other, really. And that when things don't go well, since they're already assuming goodwill and they're assuming that you mean the best for them, they are already predisposed to be able to let go of their anger at you. And forgiveness, by the way, there is a scientific definition of forgiveness, and I believe that one of the topics for this series that I'm doing with ACC is forgiveness. Forgiveness is just letting go of anger and the desire for revenge. So, in other words, secure partners do not maintain chronic anger at you. They do not hang on to the things you did. Even if you really hurt them, they are able to take the bigger perspective that this is probably more about you than it is about them, and that you might just need some more support and love. The way that secure people communicate is direct and kind and respectful and clear. They will say what they need. I've done this just recently, and it's something that when I was not secure, I would have found very difficult to do. I had to, of course, I know the science, so I've been able to use it on myself. But instead of hoping that this person would call me more often, I said, I would really like it if you called me. That would help me to feel more secure. And then they did. But let's say that the person hadn't done that. What would have happened then? Well, that's information. See, if you're communicating with somebody clearly, you're giving them an opportunity to show you what they're capable of instead of assuming that you're a mind reader. So one of the best examples of a secure person that I've read recently, or I reread recently, had to do with sex and emotional intimacy. This woman had started dating a man who she basically didn't think he was very good in bed. And she said, well, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life being sexually unfulfilled. I'm going to teach him what to do. The only person who's going to do that in a kind way, a clear way, a way that is not nitpicking, but honoring who this person is and having an attitude of, we could make this better, is a secure person. And the last thing she said about this in the quote I read was that it worked. And at first, she had thought for a number of reasons, maybe he wasn't for her, but she realized that she wouldn't pick anybody else. And she said, quote unquote, and now I love him to bits. Those are the ways that secure people talk. They're really enthusiastic about their partnership. There's no holding back there. And with sex and emotional intimacy, it's just like that. There's no holding back. We all know, probably, I hope we all know, sex can be a separate thing from emotional intimacy, but for secure people, it's not. They really view them as the same thing. They understand that sex is nature's superglue, and they don't use superglue to not have a bond with someone. They use it to create and sustain a bond. And by the way, they're by far the most happy with their sex lives. Their response to a breaking up is hard to do. That's why there was a song about it in the 1950s. But a secure partner's response to a breakup is to be sad, but to kind of be able to have the larger view of this. They understand that, hey, I could bounce back from this. I could not bounce, but I can overcome this. I can be resilient. And that's because I have a basic sense of self-worth. And if you don't have a basic sense of self-worth, we are going to talk about that. Okay, so I wanted to spend a lot of time on secure because I really want you to strive for that in your life and in the lives of people that you decide to get close to. Okay, then there's anxious. This is what I used to be. And I like to say that because I don't want you to think that I'm trying to preach from the Mount Olympus of perfection. My life has not been perfect by any stretch. I've made many, many mistakes, and I learned from them. And hopefully, if you have, in Carol Dweck's parlance, if you have a growth mentality or growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset, you can also understand that just because you're like this now doesn't mean that you are stuck being like this. Sarah Lynn Bowman says, how might polyamory address attachment issues? Have you seen any studies along these lines? I do not keep up with studies of polyamory because I study intimacy, and I'm going to just tip my hand here. Very few people in the research that I do know about, very few people manage to maintain more than one intimate love relationship. People can maintain numerous sexual relationships. People can experience feelings of love for partners they had years ago. But most of the time in relationships where there's more than one, the studies that I know of, and again, this is not something that I focus on, I'll freely admit that. But most of the time in relationships that are open, which is what we used to call polyamory, is an open relationship. I know there are some differences, but in these relationships, most of the time in heterosexual versions of this, it was the guy who wanted the polyamorous relationship and the woman went along with it in order to keep him. She probably had an anxious attachment style. And he probably had an avoidant attachment style, from what I now know about attachment. And that pairing is, even when there's not polyamory, that particular pairing is the most unsuccessful pairing on the face of the earth. So the relationships did not tend to last. The only relationships that did tend to last were the ones that closed all the doors and said, okay, it's just us now. Human beings, unlike many, many, many other kinds of animals, our young require a lot of investment from both parents in order to thrive and survive and leave their own offspring that thrive and survive. And so we use sex to bond. We don't just use it to hit it and quit it. And secure people get that. Okay, anxious, vigilant, and you guys ask great questions though. Anxious, vigilant, and afraid. So by vigilant, I mean that when I was anxious, I was always scanning to see if my partner really cared about me, or if they could really give me what I need. And by the way, I'm going to tell all of you, you should be vigilant early in a relationship, because you should be asking, can this person meet my needs, instead of the anxious thing, which is, can I meet theirs? You should be figuring that out right away. But this is different than that. These folks are really afraid. And because they're afraid of being dumped, basically, they're afraid of not being loved. Instead of saying what they need, they tend to act out. For example, well, you didn't call me for 3 days, I'm not calling you for 3 days, that kind of thing. It's called protest behavior in the scientific literature. And when an anxious person's attachment style is activated, just like a baby's attachment style that's activated will start crying, somebody who's anxious will do a lot of things like they'll think, oh, I shouldn't have called him. Now he's not going to be interested in me at all anymore. They'll worry that doing something really little will ruin everything, as if somebody who really cares about you could so easily be put off. And this is hell. I've lived this. It is hell. I'm really happy I don't have to do that anymore. There's a saying, you're only as troubled as your relationship, and that is absolutely true of anxious people. If you are in relationship with someone secure and you tell this person, I need, oh, somebody says, thank you for confirming what I know and feel. You're welcome. It was a big revelation and a big help for me also to encounter this information. I actually was up most of last night and the night before because I was so excited to be able to present this information to all of you. So you're only as troubled as your relationship. What this means is, if you're anxious, you need to find somebody who will give you reassurance. You need to find somebody who you can say, I need reassurance right now. I need to know how you feel. I need to check in with you. That this person is going to reassure you. What's really great is anxious people only remain anxious if they lack that reassurance. I am secure now, but I also know I haven't been secure for that long. And I know that if I was with somebody avoidant, I would quickly revert to being anxious. So when I ask somebody for reassurance, what I'm doing is I'm not only asking for what I need, but I'm also, it's a test, right? It's, does this person give me what I need? Can this person give me what I need? And that's something I would encourage you to do as well when you're dating. Sex and emotional intimacy. Anxious people want what secure people are selling. If you were an atom and you live in the nucleus, and then you've got the electron cloud around you, to give this analogy, anxious and secure people want their partner in the nucleus with them. They want a lot of closeness, and they definitely express that in the way that they experience sex and emotional intimacy as the same thing. They don't. Now, an anxious person may have sex just to satisfy somebody who wants it. They may have sex without emotional intimacy, but that's not what they're going for. Sadaf says, sometimes we're reinforced by our partners on our anxiety, so we might adopt the anxious style. Absolutely. If you partner, specifically if you're anxious, you need to partner with someone secure. Just, I'm cutting to the chase here because I don't know if we're going to finish all this material today. If you're anxious, you must be with someone secure. Period. Full stop. Do not go there with anybody else. Because if you are anxious and you partner with somebody who is also anxious, a lot of times the two of you are not good at reassuring each other. You're too easily triggered by each other and things spiral out of control. If you are partnered with somebody who is avoidant, heaven help you. I have done that. It is hell. It is, from the standpoint of scientific studies, it is the worst possible combination. But it's a very common combination for reasons we'll get into in a few minutes. your anxiety, if you partner with somebody who is avoidant, will be triggered almost constantly. It will make you feel horrendous about yourself, and it will really drastically undermine your self-esteem and give you a lot to get over. Um, Melody Beattie's book, Amy says, Melody Beattie wrote a book about that, I think. She was writing a book about, she wrote Codependent No More. And really, I don't agree with Ms. Beattie in her hypotheses, and neither does science. She's basically asserting that I don't think, and I've read some of her books, I don't think she understands what independence is. I think she's very anxious. This is just my opinion, but I think she's very anxious, and that comes across. Let's see. Or Pia Melody, I can't remember. I don't know Pia Melody. When does the anxious style move to an abusive style? Meaning they're anxious about loss and use threats, coercion, and bullying to try to keep the partner in the nucleus. Excellent question from Adina. So Adina, you've really touched on something very important. Anxious women do not tend to become abusive unless they are so triggered that they have actually developed something that's so extreme it looks like borderline personality disorder. Anxious men can be very dangerous because they frequently have jealousy that is completely out of control, and they feel like they have to do something about it, namely physically and emotionally abuse their partner to keep them in place. So another reason for everyone to try to find and get with someone secure is that secure is safe. Okay. Anxious people, one of the ways that they deal with their anxiety, and one of the ways that they protest, a protest behavior of theirs, is if they're not getting closeness, they may threaten to leave. They don't really want their partner to allow them to leave. If you're with somebody anxious, if you're secure and you have an anxious partner and you've seen this before, I want to translate this for you, because anxious and secure people actually do really well together. So if you're secure and your anxious partner threatens to leave, what the person is really saying is, please show me closeness now. Please reassure me. They just don't have the language for it yet. But again, they want what you are modeling for them, and you can really help them down the path just by showing them that it's safe to ask for closeness instead of act out in order to get it. And if you are anxious, hopefully this is helping you to understand that instead of threatening to leave, you might think to yourself, oh, I must really be needing closeness right now. I need to ask my partner for some of that. Okay, so breaking up is hard to do, very hard to do if you're anxious. Anxious people are more quick to become deeply attached because they have a scarcity mentality. They think that if I find somebody I love, I'm never going to find anybody I love ever again. This partner is irreplaceable. Once you've chosen somebody and you've really melded your life, happy couples do view their partner as irreplaceable, and it's actually part of commitment to view your partner that way. It's a good thing. But when you are with somebody who cannot meet your needs or refuses to meet your needs, it is really, or when you're first dating, having a scarcity mentality is super unhelpful. In fact, one of the recommended strategies for anxious people to stop themselves from attaching deeply too fast before they really know the other person, and one of the strategies for helping them to understand there are abundant opportunities out there to find a good, safe partnership, is for them to avoid what I call a mini marriage, and which means you need to date around. And dating around, and by the way, dating right now is almost synonymous with having sex. I'm talking about getting to know people, and right now it's COVID, so maybe take a walk with them or something like that. Stay socially distant. But hang out with this person on the phone or in person in a safe way where you're not having sex with them, but you're getting to know lots of people if possible, so that you don't have a scarcity mentality and you don't put your laser beam focus on any one person until they've shown you definitively, I've got what you need. So I will say, if you break up and you're secure or anxious, you need to adopt a no contact or a very minimal contact with your former partner, because secure people have got a lot of wonderful qualities and they really serve a good relationship well. But if you found it necessary to break up with someone and you're secure, because you're so forgiving, you're going to start remembering all the wonderful things about this person. It's going to be tempting to go back to them, and you need to break the tie. Obviously, if you have children together, you need to have an effective business-like, kind but professional relationship around that. But don't be calling them every day to talk to them. With anxious attachment, you're going to wind up in a BTN, better than nothing, if you maintain a lot of contact with your ex. It's just not going to work out well for you. It's going to siphon off all your energy to this relationship, which is not workable. So let the breakup be a real breakup. Somebody says, do we have different stats on attachment styles for men and women? Someone does. I don't. I don't remember it today. Thank you for the question, though, Sadaf. Somebody else said, Cameron says, what if an avoidant and secure personality meet? Well, it's not personality. It is attachment. Personality is a different thing, but I get what you're saying. Can the secure help the avoidant become secure as well as part of the influence of attachment styles? Absolutely. Everyone belongs with someone secure. That's the quick hit. Everyone belongs with someone secure. And if you're concerned that, oh my goodness, if everyone belongs with someone secure and I'm avoidant or anxious, and Dwayna just told everyone they belong with someone secure, then nobody belongs with me. Look, only a few people in the whole world are at this lecture today. So I'm just saying the people at this lecture belong with somebody secure. Most other people won't even know it. So if you are anxious like I was, or avoidant like some other people are, yes, get with someone secure. It is the fast track to something called earned security, which helps you become secure too. You'll be much happier secure. Okay, avoidant, creating emotional distance. The thing that avoidant people do is they have love at arm's length. If you've ever been with someone where just when things were going really well, they suddenly created distance. Maybe they asked you to go away with them for a weekend and you had the most amazing weekend ever. And then all of a sudden they don't call you for 3 or 4 days, or you call them, but they don't pick up. And you think, wait, didn't we just have a wonderful time? That's avoidance. Avoidants don't avoid relationships. They don't avoid sex. Amy says, these apply to all relationships, right? Family and friends? Not necessarily. There are plenty of people, that's a very interesting question. There are plenty of people who can behave in their, yeah, you're right. People tend to be avoidant, anxious, or secure across relationships. But that said, there are plenty of people who the stakes are so low in a friendship that they can do the thing that looks secure in a friendship, but they just can't do it when they feel that somebody needs them or they need someone else. They can't allow themselves to be needed. And that's the big thing with avoidance. They are afraid that something will be asked of them that they are not ready to rise to the occasion. So when I wrote my own book on attachment style a year ago, I went and approached people that I knew who had various attachment styles, and I asked if I could use their things I knew about them as examples. And one man who has an extreme avoidance style told me that I could share the following story in whatever context I wanted. So I'm going to, in other words, if you write to me and share a story with me, I do not go out into the world with that story unless I have permission, because ethics. But this man said something that a lot of people have connected with. So I want to share it with you now. He said that the time that he felt safest was when his girlfriend would go and take a bath or tell him that she was about to go take a bath. And I'm going to quote him here now. He said, because I knew that she was there for me, and at the same time, absolutely nothing would be asked of me. Avoidant people are terrified that you will ask something of them that they can't give you. They are terrified of failing at being close. The irony is that because they're terrified of this, they do the very things that prevent closeness. And the hallmark is They are inconsistent. When you're with somebody avoidant, they leave you guessing. You don't know what they're going to do. Sometimes they're on time, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they call when they said, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they ask to see you well in advance. Sometimes they treat you like an option instead of a priority. The constant maneuvering to keep a lover at arm's length is, there are many varied ways that they do this. For example, they'll refer to love as the L word or commitment as the C word. Secure people do not do that unless they're just completely joking. They won't use the L word. They won't even say love. I have known people who were in relationships where and I've got my first book, I've got a lot in there about attachment style as well. And this is what the first one looks like. This is the one that's in 5 languages. It's Love Factually, 10 Proven Steps from I Wish to I Do. And there's a woman who let me use her letter in that, where she said, it seems like he loves me, but he has never said that he does. That's avoidant. Nitpicking, somebody who has a really idealized view of the one. I've got to find the one. I'm looking for the perfect partner and I just haven't found him or her yet. But then when they find someone who seems to tick all the boxes, they suddenly find fault. And sometimes they find fault with something that actually fits what they said they were looking for. So, for example, there was a man who complained incessantly that his former wife would rather go wash the car than have sex with him. But then he got a girlfriend who said, "All right, dude, I'm here. I'm down for it. Anytime, anywhere, every time." And he stopped having sex with her. Avoidant people frequently just stop having sex. We're going to get more to sex here in a minute. But they nitpick, they find fault in little ways, or they'll devalue the relationship. They'll say something like, a lot of men would have a problem dating a woman with a kid, but, I'm better than that. That's not a compliment. That's an attempt to put you down in order to keep you in the relationship, but not fully in the relationship. If love is a nucleus, or an atom, they live in the nucleus and they want you in the electron cloud. They don't not want you. I want to make that clear. They don't not want you. They want you, but they want you at arm's length. They want you way out there in the cloud. They want you taking a bath where they know you're there or in the next room, but you're not going to need anything from them. And when you ask them about their values, these are the people who say that, dependence is a dirty word. They don't believe in dependence. They don't believe in interdependence. They believe in independence, and they believe in that more than they believe in connection, and they live their lives accordingly. You might be with somebody avoidant, or you might be avoidant if you ever use the word control in a relationship and you are male. If you say, my partner controls me, or my partner is attempting to control me, that is a sign that you probably have an avoidant attachment style. Now, a word to heterosexual women out there watching the webinar today or in the future. If you use the word control to describe your male partner, he may become abusive or may already be an abuser. So there is a gender difference here. Another watchword for avoidant is needy. If you call a partner needy, look, anxious and secure people are really clear that having needs is why we have partners. It's avoidant people who are very unclear and very conflicted about this. And in order to keep a partner in the electron cloud, but not in the nucleus, they will call them names such as needy or high maintenance or controlling. Also, the words power struggle, those virtually never come up in a secure partnership. They virtually never come up in a partnership between somebody secure and somebody anxious, or between somebody secure and somebody else secure. They come up when one of the partners is avoidant, and the person who uses the words power struggle is the avoidant one. I've already talked about avoidant people will focus on the one. They'll fail to see that the common denominator in all these relationships where someone was not quite perfect was them. They will also focus frequently on the one that got away. The perfect partner only exists in retrospect, and they may go so far as to continually compare new partners to past partners who were perfect. Why can't you be more like so-and-so? Sex and emotional intimacy are often seen as separate for people who are avoidant. And they they're the most likely attachment style to have affairs. I was wrong on that for years for some reason, but my brain had confused that. But it is, in fact, avoidant people who are the most likely to have affairs because they see sex as something largely recreational instead of something relational, and they will do things to avoid having sex be emotionally intimate. For example, people who say no kissing during sex. Well, kissing is an extremely intimate thing to do. Many of us, including me, would say that kissing is much more revealing and intimate than penile vaginal intercourse. So, it's a really intimate thing. So that's something that might be done. Or they'll insist on sleeping in different beds. Look, some people have a medical reason why they need to sleep in different beds. They have some kind of a physical concern where maybe they can't sleep together. One of them's too light asleep, or this is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people where instead of trying to come to some kind of resolution around that and sleep together at least some of the time, they just say, nope, I'm never doing it. They're very rigid, as you see. They might impose rules. When you say you need something, you get the feeling that there are certain things that are just off the table. They will not. Secure partners feel like they can talk about anything, but avoidant and anxious partners are relieved when their secure partner wants to talk about anything, because anxious people have just been looking for that leadership. Oh, thank God you're talking about everything and anything. I can too now, finally. Avoidant people don't feel that way about it. They feel like their partner's needs are very threatening. Their partner's needs may be perceived as irrational or unwarranted or too much or undeserved. And avoidant people are the most likely to say, look, your happiness is your responsibility. You do you, I'm doing me. You're alone with your issues if you're with an avoidant partner. Breaking up is hard to do for everybody. But with avoidant partners, I adopted this term from someone that I worked with for a long time. They often go through what they call the second breakup. Because avoidant partners don't want you in the nucleus, but they don't want you entirely gone, they tend to try to maintain ties without having a full relationship after the breakup. So you've got the first breakup where the breakup happened, and then you've got this kind of very nebulous. Again, nebulous is where avoidant people feel best. They feel best straddling the fence, basically. They don't want to be on one side of the fence or the other side. We're together or we are not together. Like Yoda said in Star Wars, do or do not do, there is no try. No, that's not how avoidant people feel about it. They feel like there is try. Try is all there is. We're straddling the fence here. So the second breakup is what happens when really and truly the anxious or secure partner says either, I'm really and truly not available for you anymore, and we're not talking anymore, and this is over. Or the anxious or secure former partner says, I've found somebody else. That's the second breakup. That's when frequently avoidant people don't feel all that much. They'll say things like, it's weird how I can just immediately detach after a breakup. But then when they find out that their former partner has somebody new, they go through intense grief as if this was the first breakup. Okay, we just have a few minutes left, so let's cover what if you're not secure. There are two major pathways there. I'm going to tell you about the most effective one first, which is get with someone secure. Find out what that looks like. Go to that quiz that the link that I gave you at the beginning of this talk. I'll show it to you again here in a minute. Go to that quiz and write that down and go there. And anytime you meet someone, you need to take the part of the quiz that says, assess my partner's attachment style. Because there's no one thing that tells you you're with someone secure, you're with somebody anxious, or you're with somebody avoidant, but there's a pattern. And that quiz will help you behaviorally suss out what that pattern is. Our issues primarily come from intimate relationships. Whether we are well adjusted or less well adjusted, that probably happened as a result of our relationship. So the place that we largely fix those issues is in a healthy relationship. So get with someone secure, screen for someone secure right from the beginning. And by the way, I had somebody ask me a few days ago, Dwayna, do you take your own advice? And if you do, is it hard? Yes, I take my own advice. And yeah, it's really hard. I'm asking you to do something hard. It is hard to require yourself to have enough self confidence, even or to fake self confidence enough. It is difficult to require yourself to refuse to be with someone who can't give you what you need. It's hard to do that, but it's really important to do it. The second thing you can do if you're not secure is to do something that I call notice and redirect. This is taken from research on cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a scientifically validated way of changing people's lives, where what you do is you notice. First of all, you have to educate yourself about attachment, which is what you did today. And you have to notice when you are having a thought that is non secure, and then you have to redirect that to align with reality. For example, if you are fantasizing about a former partner thinking that, oh, they were perfect, why didn't I stay with them? You need to notice that, you know what, you were broken up for a long time. You're the person who broke up. You didn't even feel anything at the time of the breakup. And the only reason you're feeling something now is you're with a new partner and it's scary to get close to that partner. Redirect. Now, okay, maybe your ex was perfect and you were a fool to let them go. Okay, go get them then. Notice and redirect. Second example of notice and redirect. Why haven't these people called you? If this person has not called you, notice that you're thinking, um, I'm not worthy. I knew that they wouldn't love me. I knew that I wasn't good enough, et cetera, et cetera. And once you've noticed yourself thinking that, redirect and think, okay, what's the evidence here? Well, they've asked me out or asked me to spend time with them every day this week. They told me that they love me. They have asked to meet my family. They always want to talk about meeting my friends. This is not real. I'm anxious. I'm having an anxious moment, but their calling is probably not about me. On the other hand, if you notice that you're really getting upset about why this person hasn't called, and it's been 2 weeks and you've called them and they never return your call, you're probably being ghosted. In other words, I'm not saying to check out from reality and convince yourself that this relationship is going well. I'm asking you to start noticing things that flew under the radar before and just ruined and ruled your life before, and try to align it with reality. I've got a question here from, I don't know if I'm saying your name right. I'm so sorry. I think it's Obaid. I can see an anecdotal prevalence of certain attachment styles over others in gay men communities. Is there any research into this demographic? Thank you. There's a lot of research into communities of gay men, and this is a very complex question that I can't go into a lot of depth, although I would really like to. You guys have asked, and women have asked wonderful questions today. Basically, there's a gay matchmaker. She's not gay, but she does matchmaking for gay men. And she requires them all to read my first book. The reason being that I talk to people about how you shouldn't use nature's superglue, which is sex, in order to not get close to somebody. And men tend to, if they have sex very quickly in a relationship, they tend to not experience a rise in dopamine. What does it for guys to really fall in love? And falling in love feels great. Almost everybody wants to have that experience. So, what I'm about to tell you is something that may seem like self denial at first, but gets people what they really want. Most people really want to fall in love. It's, nature's crack. It's awesome. So if you want to get with somebody, if you want to fall in love as a gay man, you need to wait until you really know this person and let your dopamine levels in your brain rise until you really feel like you want some level of commitment. And so this is why you'll see a lot of rom-coms, whether it's a gay couple or a straight couple, where something keeps these people from being able to have sex for a while. And they fall in love with each other. That's not accidental. The title of my attachment book is Love Factually Attachment Style Dating Made Easier. That's the title of my attachment book. If you go to lovefactually.co, you will see links to every book that I've written. Lovefactually.co, if you're curious about those. And I think Amazon maintains free content on all of my books, and I also make some of my content free for all of my books. And one of them in particular, I tried to make free permanently, and Amazon wouldn't let me do it. So the one about abuse and avoiding abuse is 99 cents forever. Okay, Sadaf says, can one have a secure style with one and insecure with another? Yes, I've done that. I was secure with a partner. I eventually became secure with a partner who was secure, and I became much more anxious with an avoidant partner. But in general, we don't change very quickly. Those changes tend to be longer term changes. Okay, so I've pretty much already presented this because I suspected rightly that we were going to run out of time. You should be screening for attachment style first. That quiz will really help you. Not the quiz that I read to you, but the one that's online. The relevant question when you're dating is not, can I change what I need? You need to identify what you need and adhere to it rigorously. And again, I make myself do this, and it's really hard because you can find somebody who seems like they're everything you want, and you find a need and they can't meet it, or they're not willing to meet it, and that's not going to work. You have to say, can they give me what I need? I have to have this. Need doesn't mean want, it means have to have. So part of what I'm emphasizing here is, do you know what you have to have? And one of the exercises that, if you go to my blog, which you can access through lovefactually.co, there's an article about finding your traits for a mate, figuring out what you have to have. The question you need to ask is not, am I good enough for them? They'll determine that. The question is, are they really good enough for you? And by good enough, I mean, can they give you what you need? Okay, so I wish we had time for the rest of it. We don't, we're at time now, but to contact, can I show the anxious slide again? I know there's so much good stuff here. The information is so abundant, and I'm so happy about that. You said, can I show the anxious one again? Okay. Yeah, so you can see that here during this last couple minutes. Layla, do I have time to answer a couple more questions, or are we done?
Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, Shireen, please weigh in on this, but if you feel like staying longer, I think that we are happy to have you for longer, but we don't want to trespass on your time. Okay, so how about if we have an agreement between, among all of us here, that if you need to go, I completely understand that. And I will just go ahead and present the rest of this then. If does that work, or are we just doing questions? I'll do either one.
That sounds wonderful for people who can stay. For people who need to go or want to go, I just want to remind people that this session is recorded, so they'll be able to review any slides that they missed, and they can find the recording on our website, which is austincc.edu/peace.
Thank you so much. So we're gonna just then go ahead and finish up with today's information. Nice meeting you too, Cameron. Thank you very much for coming today. So if you're already secure, you are what's referred to as evolution's miracle partner. You can be with anyone. You can be with somebody secure, you can be with somebody anxious, you can be with somebody avoidant. But you need to understand that it's not just that people change their attachment style intentionally by getting with someone secure and by noticing and redirecting. It is also possible and even probable that your attachment style can become non-secure. If you have achieved security, you have a precious gift, and you need to be careful about risking that. So you can be with anyone, but if you start to feel like you're going down a path of becoming less secure yourself, this is probably not a relationship that is meeting your needs. If you're anxious, Somebody says, I'm sure abusers could still wear them down. Yep, absolutely. The proper stance toward being in a relationship with an abuser is not to be. And there are excellent books that I know of that tell people how to identify. And I wrote a book, Love Factually, Identifying Abusers Before They Abuse You. And another one, Love Factually, that has to do with escaping an abuser. And I'm going to do a talk here at ACC, a webinar on that topic as well. Okay, if you're anxious, avoidant people will be like shiny objects to you. You will be so drawn to them. One of the reasons that you will be drawn to them is avoidants recycle. And I don't mean doing their trash. I mean, they are back in and out of the mating market all the time. Their relationships don't tend to work out, so they show up again and again and again and again. So there's, even though 60% to 70% of the population is secure, 60 to 70% of the dating population is not secure. Secure people tend to find somebody fairly easily, think, wow, you're awesome, and head off into the sunset. And there they stay, possibly, usually for a lifetime. They don't tend to have a lot of breakups. So you're likely, if you're anxious, in part to wind up with avoidant partners because there are so many of them in the mating market. And another reason you're likely is because there's just some special kind of voodoo that exists between anxious avoidant people. Avoidant people never date other avoidant people. It just doesn't happen. In studies that tried to find avoidant and avoidant partnerships, they never found a single one. It doesn't happen. There's not enough, like, avoidant people want relationships entirely on their terms. They're not flexible. They're not willing to compromise. So if you've got two people like that, where do you go from there? You just don't go anywhere. But avoidant people, because they can't really sustain intimacy, they tend to sweep you off your feet at the very start. And then they they do what I call set it and forget it. You know, get the hook, and then that's it. So this is going to be very attractive to you because anxious people tend to get attached really quickly, and they're looking for that. And anxious people think that somebody who is secure, they think they're boring. They're not boring. Pain is not passion. Stop going off instant chemistry. Don't believe the myth of, I have to want you desperately right now. That stuff can grow. Look, if you're a guy, I will admit this much. If you're a guy, you have to have a base level physical attraction in order to want to commit to or be with somebody. But beyond that, everyone needs to give up on this idea that the chemistry wasn't there, and instead look for, is the friendship there? Do you like this person? Do you enjoy talking to this person? If that's there, you're probably going to, increasingly, as you develop an understanding between the two of you, that's very Jane Austen of me to use the phrase develop an understanding, but it was a beautiful phrase that used to be used, that people would reach a level before having sex where they would understand each other's mind and heart and what they wanted and what they needed. And you're probably going to fall in love with that person. I have a really good example in my second book, full-length book, which is, let me show you that one as well, in case there are any single parents out there. Really, a lot of what's in this book is for everybody. It just didn't fit in the first book because a first book that is this thick is not a book. That's like, I don't know what that is. It's the Odyssey or something. So my second book, which has a lot of exercises in it, is Love Factually for single parents and those dating them. And I've got a series of letters that a client of mine allowed me to publish in the book, where she says the following about a secure partner. And I knew this guy was secure. She says, I don't know. I mean, yeah, we did talk for several hours in the restaurant, and I really like him, but I just want to be his friend. I don't feel passion or chemistry for him. He's so nice. I mean, I just hope we can be friends forever, but he's too small. I don't really want to kiss him, all that kind of stuff, which women, just give up on the height snobbery, please. I beg you. That was important when we were cave people. We're not anymore. So what I told her is, okay, I don't know if you realize this, but staying in a restaurant for someone and talking with them for 6 hours is not something that happens every day. The best people usually don't sparkle right away. It usually takes some time to develop a connection with them, but you like this person, and liking is a strong foundation. So I said, does he have any deal breakers? Because all my clients have to make their list of what they have to have. I said, is there any must have that he does not have? And she said, as far as I can assess so far, no, he's got all of them. I said, is he physically repulsive to you? Notice I did not say, is he physically attractive? I said, is he physically repulsive? And she laughed and said, no, he is not physically repulsive. I said, okay, do you like talking with him? And we all know the answer to that. She talked to him for 6 hours. She definitely likes talking to him. So, I mean, they finally, the restaurant kicked them out, and they were talking on the way to her car. So I said, okay, I'm making you go out with him again. Like, just do it because I told you to. You're paying me a lot of money per hour, just do it. So she did. And the second time she liked him even better, but she still wasn't attracted to him. And the third time she said, you know, Dwayna, it's not happening. I just don't feel butterflies. It's not working out. 2 months later, this is a direct quote from her letter 2 months later. I have never felt butterflies like this before. She didn't even remember the earlier letters. I had to go back and show them to her. Pain is not passion, it is pain. Pain is not love, it is pain. Pain is a sign that you're with the wrong person. Ignore the boredom, allow yourself to be with this secure person if you like them. If you don't like them, okay. But if you like them, allow an attachment to develop. Date numerous people without having sex with them, because it allows you to avoid getting too quickly bonded to any one person. Risk clear communication. Tell them what you need. Tell them, you know, sometimes I get, I have a real strong need to feel secure in a relationship. I don't know that if I'm never hearing from you, or if I'm not hearing from you every day, or if I reach out and I don't hear from you at your soonest convenience. If I know that you're communicating with me at your soonest convenience, I'm completely chill, but I need to know that that's what's really happening. So if you text me back 3 hours later, I know that I wasn't being ignored. Risk it, because it's all good information. If they don't do it, that's good information for you. It's somebody who's chosen not to meet a stated need, and that's something you need to know. And stop dating people who make you feel insecure. You've had enough of that in your life. Again, the temptation, if you're anxious, is to feel that you need to be good enough for them. And that is the wrong way to think about that. It's their job to decide if you're good enough for them. It's yours to decide if they're good enough for you. Give secure people a chance. Oh, Eric Hepburn says, thanks for the height snobbery shout out. Absolutely. I actually wrote a relationship ad for myself where I actually said, you are between 5'3" and 5'9". And then I said, actually, I don't care at all about your height. I just wanted to put it out there that nobody divorces or breaks up over height, and I'm not going to discriminate on that basis. Height snobbery is just, it shouldn't be a thing. We're not cave people anymore. Amy says, I'm sure abusers could still wear secure people down, but not enough glue to hold anything together. Secure people can wind up being very much abused, actually, because secure people are very forgiving and they make a lot of excuses for their partners. So just because you're secure doesn't mean you're made of Teflon and nobody can get to you. They can. You need to be very careful not to be with somebody who makes you feel belittled or undermined in any way. And I will tell you this, if I had to summarize 60 years of science in just one sentence, relationship science in just one sentence, and give advice in that sentence, here's the sentence. If you can find and be someone kind and respectful, your relationships will go well. And if you can't, they won't. So that's where the emphasis really needs to be, is on the quality of the connection. If you're secure, that doesn't mean you can be with somebody who's not kind and respectful. Everyone has to be with someone kind and respectful, or it's not going to work out. Everyone has to be someone kind and respectful, or it's not going to work out. You can't overstate those qualities in somebody. Okay, if you're avoidant. If you're avoidant, you're probably feeling kind of crappy right now, if you even stuck this far with this presentation. And I can certainly see why, because it sounds like what I told you is that it's hopeless. I want you to understand it's not hopeless. But it does mean that your dream, if you have a dream of total intimacy, it's never happening. unless you change yourself. It is simply not ever going to happen. Your legacy of happiness in your own life and others will be infinitely more wonderful if you stop emphasizing independence and start nurturing interdependence in your life. Take up the challenge. Get with someone secure. Learn what a secure partner looks like and stop dating anxious people. You're not going to date somebody avoidant. Stop dating anxious people. Look, I know anxious people give you something so sexy when you first meet them because they are so eager to find a partner and they are so swept up, just they're knocked out by your early game. Don't be with that person. It's pain. Get with someone secure. Allow yourself to be loved. If you don't know how to do that, go and get yourself some emotionally focused therapy. That is the therapy that Dr. Sue Johnson, and did I keep her book here on my desk? No, I didn't. It's back in another room. I'm still reading it. Dr. Sue Johnson invented emotionally focused therapy. It is a scientifically validated therapy which couples can attend together, but I encourage you to find a therapist who specifically specializes in EFT right now to talk about allowing yourself to accept love, allowing yourself to accept the feeling of being interdependent with somebody else. Also, learn how to tell your secure partner that you need space, but that it's not about your partnership. Learn how to say to your partner, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. I think I need some alone time, but I want you to understand this has nothing to do with my feelings for you. That will help your secure partner to stay secure and to continue mentoring you in your journey towards security. What you're doing when you choose a secure partner, if you're secure, is you're staying secure. If you're not secure, you are being mentored in how to be secure. And it's a very important thing. And then continue with the notice and redirect. Notice when you're again, you're learning about what it's like to be avoidant. Notice when you're doing something that avoidant people do, or thinking something that avoidant people think, and then redirect to align with your current reality. Okay, if you would like to contact me, I answer all letters for free. You can reach out to me at Dwayna at lovesciencemedia.com. If you want to see my blog, which I really don't write a blog anymore, I go on a lot of podcasts. Thank you, Amy, for being here today. If I write a lot of, I do a lot of podcasts. They're not my own podcasts, but I think there's more than 30 hours of content from me right now on Spotify. And if you go to lovesciencemedia.com and you do a search on the tags of everything I've got out there, the tag podcasts, you'll be able, even if you don't have Spotify, to just see every podcast I've ever done, pick the topic that you want, and you can self-educate. You can pick the topic of attachment style, for example. If you want to take a look at all my books, you can go to lovefactually.co. I'm on Amazon, Goodreads, Psychology Today, Spotify, a lot more places. You can do a search for me on podcasts and you can find me there as well. And I really thank you very, very much for your time today. I really appreciate the respect of your attentiveness for an hour and 35 minutes now. So thank you so much, Sadaf, Ramesh, Rosario, Deanna, Seda, and Rebecca. I really appreciate your thank yous as well. And by the way, Seda, yes, the recording will be available to go back and watch.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dwayna. I think your presentations, in whatever format they are, need to come with a warning that you will not be content with just one. You'll keep coming back for more. So the good news for our community is that you will be coming back for 3 more in this particular series, and these are all recorded. And the links will be available on our website, austincc.edu/peace. Go to the events section and you'll find it. Thank you everyone for giving us this hour and a half. So many of you were able to stay and listen to the whole thing and participate.
Thank you. I appreciate all of you so much.
Have a great afternoon, everybody.